Friday the 13th. Friday, it's good that we have Gary on. I'm going to talk to Gary about that. Friday the 13th was the last time I went into work. Oh, here he comes right now. Look at this. We'll switch over. Look at that great graphics they got. Can you hear me, Mr. Horne?
I can hear you, buddy.
Awesome. So we were just talking about about a lot of things, and I was saying I was trying to get on the track of I have been out of work, like not out of work. I've still had a job, but I've been working from home since since Friday the 13th. And I just assume I've now grown accustomed that I just assume everybody else is also home. Nobody else goes to work. Nobody else has to deal with that crap. And they're just home. So like, so I like set up interviews or I ask people to come on and they're like, oh, I'm trying to get there. Like you say, I'm trying to get home. Like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you have to do. We had the stepdads of wrestling. They're essential workers. So nothing has changed for them. And I think that's just so ignorant on my part. So I don't know how I got on that conversation, but it's just weird. And so thanks for coming on. You didn't have to rush. It's never a rush. You always have an open invitation to come on. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm good, buddy. And yeah, I was actually finishing up a few work things,
Yeah.
but I'm actually still working from home. I am like still
Right.
quarantined in, but I just had something I had to get done. And so they're still not having us come into the office, but I just was trying to get it wrapped up so I could get in here
Yeah.
and I've got all my work stuff set up in one room and then
Yeah.
all of this stuff
In
set up in
another.
another room. And then some of it I have to share. So I have to like
Yeah.
move it over. And, so it
And
was taking me longer than I expected.
and that's the other thing.
But
Like my wife. Sorry to cut you off. My wife works from home too now.
no,
Like she's been working from home, and I work from home. But what we like, I can work from home and be mobile and free. It's just the nature of what I do. But my wife is an actual she's a pharmacist, so she's a doctor, so she's got to be there all the time doing all this stuff, calling patients, talking to people. She can't be bothered all the time. So it's even working from home, am sometimes narrow minded and expect that everybody can do what I do working at home. And that's not the case. Like she actually is still working right now because she had to take an hour out of her day for something else. But enough work talk, right?
oh, hey man, I am here for you. I have made it. I feel like I'm on top of the world here. I'm finally on putting you over. So
Yeah, right.
this is good for me.
Well,
I am here for whatever the standing streamer wants to talk
yeah,
about.
whatever shenanigans we got. And I was saying that I've been wanting to have Gary on for a long time because I just like the style of your interview and I was plugging your stuff and we got the links and I just like I like your style and I want to get to that. And I just like your whole take on wrestling. But so let's start. So where does your love for wrestling stem from? Like how far back does it go? Like way
Oh
back,
man,
kid?
I think my whole life.
What was your first
Yeah, I
memory?
think my like literally my first wrestling memory is probably also I've thought about this a lot, especially since doing this. I think
Yeah.
it's actually like literally one of my first memories, and it's like walking into a room with my parents, and Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan were on,
Yeah.
and it's like it was the whole thing where Andre turned on Hogan
Turned
and was
heel,
out
ripped
there with Heenan and like ripped the
yeah,
cross
ripped
off
the
the
cross right off
yeah,
his chest.
and then Piper's like, "You're bleeding," and
Yeah.
that whole scene is still like it's like burned into my memory, and I remember seeing that and how huge they looked, and a
Oh,
guy was bleeding, and
yeah, it was
and it
bigger
was
than
just
life. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, and so I think that's the first one. But yeah, man, so from then on, I was hooked. I've watched wrestling for as long as I can remember. I started with WWE stuff mostly, but as time went along, I started appreciating other styles or other types of wrestling and that sort of thing. And obviously now my focus is
All
NWA mostly.
NWA also. And then the other interesting part, and I kind of got the glimpse when I first stumbled upon you you were doing the NWA pod. It was you and Adam at the time, and I grew to love what you guys were doing and what you were putting out. And we don't even have to delve into that, but some people liked Adam and some people liked you, and that's just the nature of the business. Actually, when you have a team, some people like Christopher Mad Dog Russo, some people like Mike Francesa. You might not even know those two people, but the reference makes sense to me. So I leaned towards you, and I start
Gotcha.
realizing that you do another podcast, another thing about horror movies and cult films and all that stuff. So you already had a podcasting presenting type of experience in your background. Like has I guess broadcasting always been something you've been passionate about? Like what do you like? Maybe that's something you do in your shoot job. I have no idea.
It's actually not something I do with my shoot job, but I wish it was.
I like saying
think
shoot job. I just wanted to crowbar that in.
No. I've always had an interest in it, but I don't think that for some reason I never pursued it really.
Yeah.
I just I always liked the entertainment industry and that sort of thing, and broadcasting or journalism. Like I went to school for journalism for a little while. Like I tried that as a major for a bit, but I never could get too into it because it was I don't know. I just never felt like I was going to be like the strict, like write a column kind of style. Like if I was going to do like some kind of broadcast journalism or something like that, it was going to be like what we do as podcasters, So, I always wanted to do it. And then, after a little while, podcasting became a thing. So I was listening to podcasts when they first started out and I was super into them. And then all of a sudden, like I had a buddy that we'd go see movies all the time and just spend like an hour talking about them afterwards all the time anyway. And he was like, we should do a podcast. And I'm like, okay, let me think about it. And I sometimes I'm like really gung-ho and sometimes I'm like real hesitant. And I like want to plan everything perfectly. And but luckily he pushed me into it, and we started the Psychotronic Film Society. It's at Psychotronic Pod for anybody that wants to check it out. But it's just based on cult movies, like weird horror and sci-fi and that kind of stuff. So that's what got us going. Yeah, and then eventually that bled over into letting me do another thing I was passionate about, which was wrestling.
I just dropped the Psychotronic thing. Yeah, I just thought that was I thought it was extremely interesting. I have a friend too, and like we're always shooting the shit back and forth about a multitude of things, and we have always talked about doing some sort of podcast, but we never get around to it for one reason or another. Basically, it's usually his fault, but that's neither here nor there. So, all right, so you were doing this podcast, the cult horror stuff first?
Yeah, that was actually my first one. I was doing it for probably, 2 years before I even started. This is the NWA.
And how did you and Adam hook up then, I guess, is what I want to. I'm trying to follow your timeline. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. So what happened there was basically I was doing the movie podcast already, and I got really into the idea of doing something for wrestling. Wrestling's my other passion. I love talking about wrestling and watching wrestling and just analyze like that. Just think the business is fascinating and all of that stuff. So I started to think about I could figure out a way to work that in. The problem is like a lot of things. There's like 100 wrestling podcasts. Well, there's way more than 100. I'm sure.
A lot.
So I was like, well, how do I do anything that stands out, or what's something different that I can do with this? Timing wise, like perfectly timing, like literally around the time I was having this thought, Billy Corgan ended up purchasing the National Wrestling Alliance. And I actually grew up a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan.
Yeah, me too. And if you followed Billy Corgan, and like I'm a wrestling fan, you're a wrestling fan, and you would know, like he was heavily involved in Impact. He almost bought Impact, TNA at the time, and that kind of fell through and stuff. So I knew, like I know when people hear Billy Corgan bought the NWA, like when I told my wife this, she's like, didn't understand, but he's actually a big wrestling fan. So that made complete sense to me, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is weird to a lot of people, and it was weird for a lot of reasons. It was weird because some people didn't know that Billy Corgan was at all interested in wrestling. I happen to know, just as a fan of his, that he had, been in Impact and even run an indie promotion in Chicago for a while,
Yep.
and so I knew that he had an interest in wrestling. But the other side of this was he was buying the NWA, which was the National Wrestling Alliance, the oldest wrestling entity out there, just that you can trace the lineage of back to, some would say 1948, some will tell you all the way to 1905, and at least with the championship. So there was something fascinating about that. But of course, it was kind of considered pretty dead in the water, like not a lot was happening with it. And so there were a lot of people thinking he was crazy in the wrestling world that were just like, what did you just buy? Like, why would you buy this thing? And it's worthless, if you whatever you paid, you overpaid for it. And so all of that stuff, I don't know, like right when I heard that, I was like, well, that's my end.
Yeah.
Like that's the fun one. Like I was like, there's a niche thing. Nobody's going to be covering the National Wrestling Alliance, and it's just coming out of nowhere. And it's Billy Corgan, who I'm already a fan of. I love his music, and honestly, and this wouldn't be sucking up to him. I just, as a fan of him, I'd always counted him as like an underdog kind of guy, like a guy that was a weird dude who had the weird singing voice.
The bald head for
somehow,
a while.
though, he made stuff happen.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and he just he'd always carried through, and somehow he made stuff happen. And so anyway, I decided I was going to do a podcast about the NWA. Now, again, I got into my like hemming and hawing stage of like plotting out like, all right, well, how do I talk about it? What do I talk about exactly? And all of a sudden, on the scene bursts Adam Rotella.
Yeah.
And so I see this guy just show up on, as I'm starting to follow NWA stuff. I mean, he's right there.
He's there.
And so he's, and he starts announcing that he's going to petition for a job at the NWA, and he's going to be working to make it his goal to get there and all of this stuff. So I was familiar with him.
Right.
And then also that encouraged me to go ahead and stop goofing off and get in on it, because I'm like, all right, well, it's going to seem like this is the only guy who thought of this if I don't do something too. So I had to go ahead and jump in myself. How we got together was because probably I had been doing it. Gosh, man, I bet I think it was like a year in. We have like two totally different approaches. He has like the more, I'm trying to think of the way to describe it. It's like kind of the late night talk show shtick kind of thing or something. And he's like a little offbeat humor kind of stuff. And I was trying to play it more journalistic, I think, or something. I don't know. I don't know what exactly was. I would goof off, but I was trying to play it more like my show was going to be more, all of these people are independent wrestlers as well. Here's where you can see them. This is what's going on with them.
Whoa. Stop the clock.
Each person, and trying to use the show to be more of a like, let's get over the talent that's involved in the NWA. And then I'd have like guests on that had never watched wrestling before sometimes, and they talk to me about wrestling and what they thought about it. Anyway, sorry, long story short, or short story long.
Though. You had guests on that never watched wrestling before?
Oh yeah, that was part of the fun, man. I started, the way I started was I picked up right at the beginning of the 10 Pounds of Gold series that Lagana and Corgan were doing with Nick Aldis and Tim Storm. And I was like, well, this is the beginning of this whole thing. And so everybody's technically new to this. So I would just invite anybody on and we'd cover like a series of gold stuff. So like a couple of times I'd have somebody who was a huge wrestling fan, somebody that was actually keeping up with it. But then I had several points where I was like, let's introduce somebody completely new to wrestling to this thing and see what they think about it. And so that was kind of fun. Some of them still watch it to this day.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
That's worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just interesting, especially, because the wrestling is a weird thing to just jump into anyway. And then this 10 pounds of gold thing is like a weird off kilter kind of version of that. But going along right about the time that Crockett Cup 2019 happened, I had met Nick and David Lagana there and all of that stuff. But then right before Power started, I was kicking around the idea of doing interviews because Nick Aldis actually hit me up. And Nick Aldis hit me up and he asked if I wanted to do an interview, which was really cool. Wow. Like I didn't know how you even did that. Like I didn't know how to reach out to somebody or what that even was. So one day I get a DM from Nick Aldis and it's just like, hey, we got NWA Power coming up and I'm going to be doing a lot of media. And if I'm going to be doing a lot of media, I'd like to talk to you.
Yeah.
And
community, yeah.
I was like, sure. Okay. Yeah. So we set it up and it happened. And I think we talked like 2.5 hours in that interview or something. Like we just like hung out one night and just talked. And I feel like we kind of hit it off. But then all of a sudden that gave me the confidence to start asking. I'm like, well, why can't I ask, this person or this person? I finally reached out and asked Lagana. And so when I asked David Lagana, he wrote back to me. And so about this time, Rotella had still been in there, but he had kind of veered off of the NWA stuff, honestly. I don't know. He was doing like this kayfabe tease thing or something like that.
That's when I ran into him. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was doing that stuff. So he wasn't like as full into the NWA right at that point. And, but he had been a guy that he was over on the side of the country that a lot of these guys were in, like Lagana being in California, and they were doing a lot of stuff at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and that sort of thing. So I think Adam was in Vegas at the time, so he'd drive over there and see him, and he'd start harassing Lagana and like stalking him and stuff like that. And Lagana would always make jokes about that. But anyway, because of that, like I guess I think that Dave saw what I was doing,
right?
And I don't want to sound braggadocious, but I think he liked it. I think he liked what I was doing, but he also had a connection with Rotella, and he had never really done an interview with anybody about it. Like just, I don't know. Like I think he'd done like bigger platforms, but never like let's get these podcasters a thing.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I'll tell you what, I'll do an interview with you if it's you and Rotella. And he's like, because I don't want to feel like I'm giving one an interview without the other one or something like that. Right. And so he's like, but you got to make that happen. So I'm like, all right.
Oh.
So I just reached out to Adam, and I'm like, hey man, we got stuff to do. You want to still talk about NWA? I could get us David Lagana, but we got to do it together. And he took like a day or two. Adam's Adam, and he I think he was just like kind of like, what's going on here? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'll get back to you, my man. Like, and I'm trying to, but he ended up hitting me back up, and he's like, okay, let's do this. And so we had the interview, and that was it. And then it was just like from there, we decided to keep going for a little while and work together and do shows together. We started the live chats after NWA Power, so those were doing pretty well, and so. We had a nice little run there with it.
Nice run. That's an interesting story. That's very interesting story how you guys got together. But and it played out. And you guys, what you guys did while you guys were together was great, and it came out wonderful. And one thing led to another for whatever circumstance. But you guys both kind of go in your own way, and that's fine because you got the people that love what Adam's doing. And you got the people that love what you're doing now with the NWA Pod. So let's fast forward to that. What you got going on now? You got Will with you, and you got Doctor. I gotta say Doctor
Yeah.
Stinson on
Got
board
to.
with the end.
He's a PhD.
Yeah, he is a PhD. Got to put those credentials behind your name. So they tell me at work, Kevin, start putting the credentials behind your name when you talk. I'm like, no, I don't think so, but that's me. Anyways, so you got them on board. So I got a couple questions for you. One, how did that come about? You pulling those two guys in, and two, do you feel like you need to pull guys in to pull off or to put out content that you want to put out? Like, I go through this dilemma all the time. I try to do a little variety podcast show type of thing, and it's just me, and it's been me for a long time, and it's a lot of friggin' work. And sometimes I feel like maybe I should open up and let some people in that have the same mindset and see how that is. Do you feel that's necessary with this type of stuff we're putting out? One, and then how did you hook up with those two?
Yeah, I think it's like whatever your goal is, you know. It's the thing with me is like, I don't know if this sounds like BS or not. I keep telling people this, but it's like I just had to do what made me happy.
Right.
And
well, we talked before off, like in DMs and stuff, and that's, you said that all the time. I'm just gonna do what I enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole point in the first place. I never like went into this thing expecting that I was going to be some billionaire based off of like talking to the computer screen. So, I mean, sure, if money comes in, that's great. Yeah. If opportunities present themselves, awesome. But first and foremost, it had to be like, I just like doing it, and it's giving me an outlet. And and turns out there's a community out there, which was always the coolest part to me. Just all the people you meet, like us talking and stuff like that. Just that was the fun part of it for me. Like, I like interacting, not just with the wrestlers, but with the actual people that love wrestling. With people, I was doing it because I wanted to talk about wrestling. And so the thing is like, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's a lot of work, dude. And like, if you want to be I mean, you can look at him and tell him, I mean, Adam Rotella is a machine. Like, there is nobody that is like Adam Rotella as far as that's just a different breed of cat. I don't know. Like, I'm not that. And I don't know many people that are. I think he just, like, that is his bread, like his breathing is content, you know, like he just, all he's doing most of the time is making video clips and audio clips and stuff like that. For some of us, I mean, if that is your goal and that makes you happy, then go for it, you know. But for a lot of us, especially, like, I mean, I think you're in this situation. I know the guys I'm with, and myself, like, you got families, you got stuff going on in your life. Like, we've got the shoot job, and you know, so I do the shoot job, and then you know, for me, I don't have any kids, but the doc has kids, Will has kids. So for me, like, I don't have kids, but I have a wife, and she requires attention as well. And so it can't be just exactly. So when work's busy, then after work, I can spend a little time with it, but I can't be up till like midnight working on stuff, just like pushing out content and stuff like that. So I have to schedule like what I can do and when I can do it. And so for me, like, I was kind of sticking with like a weekly show. That was kind of what I knew I could manage. But when Adam and I broke off, and it's just, you know, Adam's doing his own thing, and there's plenty of room in the world for whatever, I kind of got into this mode of like trying to decide what I wanted to do next. I wanted to probably go back to the weekly show like I had been doing before, because it seemed to work fine and that sort of thing. But I missed parts. I missed the live after shows and the live interaction with people and that sort of thing. So I think it's hard. And I know you've done this before, and it happens, but I've tried it before. It's tough to like carry a whole show just talking to yourself, you know, or you know what I mean? Like being by yourself, carrying it. And so I was trying to think about like, well, would anybody else be interested in doing this, but like seeing it kind of my way, that it's like not business and strict. It's more just like loose, and we're going to do what we can, however we can. Do what I think Lagana told me that like right from the start, like, or when I was trying to figure this out, I actually happened to be talking to him, and he was just like, you can only do what you can do with what you have from where you're at.
Yeah.
And that always stuck out to me. And, but I was, so I was like, well, whatever I'm going to do, it has to be fun, but it would be fun again to have somebody to talk to. I wonder if there's somebody that we could work out schedules with. My wife worked with this guy, Will. And
interesting.
Yeah. So well, she used to actually. Like, she used to, but I met him through that. So we were like Facebook buddies and stuff. And Will's in marketing, man. Like that's his degree. That's his shoot job is. Yeah, his shoot job is in marketing and strategy and planning and all of that stuff. And so that part was appealing to me, and I'm like, maybe he'd have some ideas on a direction, but also I had seen Will like just a little bit, like we weren't super tight, but I had seen him try to start like Facebook groups and stuff like that so that people would get together and talk about wrestling. He had tried to do like a wrestling podcast at one point I saw, but I don't know if it didn't get any traction or whatever, but it just quit after a little while. So I was like, well, my wife mentioned him one day. She's like, you and Will always have like a similar personality. I bet you guys would do really good together. And so I was like, I'm going to hit this guy up and just see if he's interested in that. And he just like immediately was like, yes, I've always wanted to do something like this. And he's like, and I've seen what you're doing. He's like, you came out of nowhere and you've got a thing and there's a community. And he's like, that's all I ever wanted. I want to do that. And so I'm like, all right, perfect. So he was excited about the exact same stuff that made me excited about it. Like just the community, what we call now the hashtag NWA fam.
Yep.
And so that's where he came from. I was like, well, let me think about some stuff and how we're going to do this. And I'll talk to you soon. I figured in like a week or two we'd get started. But all of a sudden, like the next day, the dude's putting out these Hey It's Will dailies, like these 5-minute daily shows. And and they're funny and he's good, man. He's really good at it. And I was like, well, I'm going to be an idiot if I don't go ahead and jump into this again and start doing this and like wrap this guy up and let's do this. Like, and so I was like, hey man, I don't know. Did you like start your own thing? And he's like, no, I was just trying to show you how to do it. So I'm like, all right, well,
here's my resume.
Yeah, exactly. And so we got together. So that's where he came from. And sorry if I'm rambling at all.
No. Ramble on. I ramble all the time. You ramble.
But so he came in and we started deciding on what we were going to do and going to do the live shows and everything else, yada, yada, yada. The doc, though, Dr. Stinson, Dr. Robert Stinson.
Dr. Robert Stinson, the third. I think we should add the third. I don't know if he's a third.
Probably should, just for the heck of it.
Yeah, right.
He's a a well-educated, smart man, and he just but he's also a huge wrestling fan and a huge NWA fan. And his doctorate is not in professional wrestling, but he's got a professor level amount of knowledge in his brain about the history of the NWA.
Nice.
And so he was a huge NWA fan. And the first time I ever saw the guy was at an NWA power taping. And it's like him, his wife, and his two daughters, one of which is like 2 or 1 at the time. I don't even know, like, but a little one.
Yeah.
They all come in dressed as Mongrovian karate students. And they're at the power tapings. And I'm like, wow, this guy is on this.
Into it.
Yeah. And which is cool. It's one of the cool parts about the NWA. You got people like Sandoval or Orange Santa and the Masked Fan. And then these guys coming in as like karate students. And it makes it fun. But anyway, so because of that stuff, like he started getting involved. To hear him tell it, he was just kind of like, he was watching Rotella and I do the live shows before, and he just watched us from afar, and he said he used to listen to my podcast, and all of that stuff. And so he was like, it's almost funny, when you meet people like this, because he's just like, I never thought of you as like a real person. You were just a person like I listened to, like it was a radio or something, And he's like in one day I saw you guys had a YouTube show, and he's like, and then his daughter Piper,
Yep.
she was like, she said, well, Dad, you can like interact with them and stuff. And he's like, what? You can talk to them and stuff? And she like showed him how to use the chat feature on YouTube, and
That's
like so you could jump in the chat. And, and so he started interacting and everything. And so we got to kind of know each other. It's just him as part of the community. And basically what ended up happening with him is like we got pretty tight, just like shooting the shit back and forth about that. I don't know if I can curse, sorry.
No,
but,
you can curse. Go ahead.
But anyway, so he would have all this knowledge, but the way it really kind of clicked in was one day, just I got into a whole thing with Pro Wrestling Illustrated. You might have seen it on there. People that follow me might have seen it, but with the NWA Pod also, just because they announced like which champions they recognized as full-fledged real world wrestling champions, and the NWA wasn't on there. And so like I'm gonna push for my boy Aldis to be recognized as a real world champion. I believe he's the legit one, and
he was at the time.
So
he's a non-fighting champion now.
Well, we're not gonna go into that. That's a whole other debate. But he can't help it.
I know. I'm busting his balls. But yes, I did see that. It wasn't recognized, and that's a shame because that title should be recognized.
Exactly. And so I was like, well, what are your criteria? Why are you guys saying this? Like, why is, New Japan and not the NWA, or, like what's the setup for this? And because I think they were doing like AEW, New Japan's IWGP, and then the two WWE titles. And not even like NXT, I don't think, but like just like SmackDown and Raw or whatever, the Universal. And,
I'm so sick of
World title,
all the titles in WWE. But that's another topic
right,
altogether.
Exactly, man. Oh yeah, no, I mean, I keep up with them, with what's going on with them, and I just it bums me out when I think about how I used to be able to list like all the champions right in a row. I used to be able to just do it. But then now it's like flip-flopped around and gone everywhere, and there's different versions, and it's split and come back together and split.
There's double champions.
I'm like, what? I don't even... Exactly. And I'm like, I don't even know what's happening anymore. But anyway, so we get into it, and I happen to have a connection with one of their contributors, Brian Solomon, who's written a couple of wrestling books, and he's working with PWI and does their podcast. And I was like, well, if you ever want to have a debate about this, we could make it a show. And he was down, and basically got it approved by Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And we were going to have the debate. The day of the debate, probably an hour before, Doc Stinson hits me up on DM, and he's like, I got to talk to you, man. I know this is coming. You gotta let me talk to you. And I'm like, all right. So I give him my number, and he calls me. And then he's just like going up. So he's like, when you're talking about the NWA championship, you got to mention this. And you got to mention George Hackenschmidt, and you got to trace it back to Luthez, and then, then this happened. Then there was this moment, blah, blah, blah. And you got to make sure when you're thinking of a world title, when we're thinking in educational terms, we don't view like this testing this way because I was like, dude, like,
whoa.
I was like, I am not going to be able to represent any of this. I was like, do you just want to like be on the chat with us? Because it's cool, really, hilarious. If you want to. And he was like, yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, great. And so he just like jumped on the Zoom chat, and then I've never been able to shake him since.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like he's just been there.
It's like PTI. I don't even know if PTI is still on ESPN. Pardon the interruption. I don't know if you're a sports guy, but PTI always had their the stats guy. So they had oh man, I can't remember his name, but he was the stats guy. So they would go to him at the end of the show, and he would just recite all the stats they got wrong, the history, and all this blah blah blah. That's exactly what he is. And now that guy has his own show, and Stinson's on the show, and it works. It gels well, and I like the NWA Pod brand that we're getting now. So we get you, Will, and Dr. Robert Stinson III, That's great.
Right.
We get Hey, It's Will dailies, and we get Piper's Notes. It's a nice little package. It's really good.
That was kind of the fun of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the Rob Stinson's daughter, like he was already doing content as well. So
Yep.
that kind of just happened. Like he was just doing a family channel. He called it like Stinson Vision.
Yeah,
and he would do like stuff with his daughters. But one of the big ones was Piper's Note, hashtag Piper's Notes, which he got from the show with Rotel and I, because I used to like be talking about power, and I would say something my wife, Jennifer, like would say, like while we were watching, I would do like hashtag Jenny Notes or something.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. That's
so
funny.
he took that, and
Yeah.
made hashtag Piper's Notes. And Piper's Notes was different, you know, like he would try to get like wrestling personalities, but not just wrestling. It'd be like musicians and different people. And they'd watch a music video together, and like Piper's super into music, and she's young. She's like eight or nine or something, I think. And but they watch a music video with like the musician or the wrestler or whatever, and they just critique it or talk about it and just talk about their history with music and that sort of thing. And it was like a different flavor of thing. And I told him one day, I was like, hey man, this is a community platform. Like if you know, I don't want to take away from what you're doing, but if you want Piper's Notes in the NWA pod, like we'd be happy to have it over there. And he was down. And so I thought it opened this up. Like you said, it like makes a different kind of package now. Like there's different kinds of stuff happening.
Is it hard? Was it hard to present that? Because I've had that same feeling before. I've had that feeling where I've noticed, I go around, I watch a lot of things, and I notice like what people are doing, and I'm like, oh, this person's doing this thing, and it kind of fits. And there's a part of me that's like, hey, I have sort of a small community of wrestling stuff, and you're doing this one thing over here that's for that community. You know, you're more than welcome to bring it on, putting you over, and we'll do a segment on it, and it can be a weekly segment or whatever the case. Is it hard to present that to other people without feeling like you're offending them?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was tiptoeing around it. Like even with Will, when he started the Hey, It's Will Daily, because I don't know, it's like you want to offer it,
right.
but you don't want to be like, I'm trying to own what you're doing
right.
or something like that, you know? And so it's kind of weird because, and I've been in relationships like that, like with other creators and stuff, where it can feel like it's more competitive like that. And but where I was, again, was fun. Like I'm just trying to have fun. And this thing, when Adam and I split off, like we let him take the YouTube channel. So like the YouTube channel wasn't monetized anymore. I had to start a new YouTube channel under the This Is the NWA banner. And so it was kind of just like, hey man, I got this thing, you know, we've got a community that already follows This Is the NWA. If you'd like to put your stuff there, it's fine. No offense if you don't.
Yeah.
But, you know, if the opportunity's there, it's not even like money's involved really right now or anything. So it's like, it's just, what do you want to do? And both those guys were on board. And I was, like I said, I was just kind of at the point of like, I felt like what This Is the NWA was going to be was a platform to show, to celebrate all the things of the NWA, which meant, yes, interviews with wrestlers and talking about the shows, but also could be like, this fan base is so broad. Like we talked about all the different people, like there's a lot of different wild stuff going on in the fan community. So I'm like, this is a good platform to elevate them and to show what these other people are doing and trying to do that just also happen to be wrestling fans.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how that happened.
That's the vibe I get from it. That's the vibe I get. So did a good job.
And it's just been kind of fun because, I mean, Piper's Notes had wrestlers on it, but she slowly morphed into like these last couple of weeks, she's had like musicians and stuff on there. And I think it's okay. Like, I don't have any say in that stuff. I mean, like that's just, I was just, you know, because that was part of the deal. It was like, you can bring your thing over and just do it here.
That's the way to do it, though.
That's how
I
Stinson, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does all that. He and Piper book the guests and set it up, and they just try to have one a week. And not like we're like hammering down on somebody if they miss a deadline or something. It's nothing like strict like that, but it's that's kind of how it's worked out. So it gives us like a buffet of stuff for people to enjoy.
Wonderful. Let's actually get to some wrestling talk besides all this crap that we're going through.
Not slow news week in wrestling, though. I don't know what you could ever want to talk about.
Yeah, right. Good Lord. There was, okay, so it was, I don't even know. I don't know if it was this week or last week. I had, I do my shows. I try to do them Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And I had an interview show. I had my regular show on Thursday, and all the speaking out, and don't get me wrong, it's great stuff, but it all busted out on this day. And it kicked me like right in the gut. Like I didn't want to do anything. I'm a father of 3 daughters. I have 3 daughters. So I was just wiped out, and I didn't want to do the show. I didn't want to do anything. But the actual guest that I had on that night, I'd already pushed off once for another reason. And I felt I didn't want to do that to him again. So I ended up doing the show, and it was a great show. I had a blast. Tyler Turva from Canada, independent wrestler. It was phenomenal. Had a great Brutus the Barber Beefcake story. It was wonderful. But that's a whole bunch of news. But so before we were waiting for you to get on, and I was talking to the chat here, and I was like, oh man, it's been so busy with my shoot job and my kids. We just lost our cat, and we have all this, we had to put the cat down, that type of loss. So it was really bad. And, we have this drama and vacation we're trying to figure out and all this crap. And I was like, I didn't even prepare for Gary. What am I going to talk to Gary about? So Vanessa, who's been great in the chat, and been helping me out, like kind of helping me book people and produce stuff. She goes, oh, you got to ask him about Zicky Dice, his release. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I'm like, what are you talking about? I was just in his stream yesterday. I subbed to the guy. I didn't hear anything about it. What happened? What happened? So he got let go, or what's the deal? Do you know?
Oh, well, dude, it was a shock, definitely. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you, my day has been hell today. And it's just been from work being busy, and I got wrapped up in some nonsense. And I'm not going, in order to save my relationships that I've made over time, I'm not going to name names or discuss too deep into this, but I'll give you this.
Well, that's so fun, Gary.
I was caught up in, I somehow got caught up in all this mess.
In the Zicky Dice mess?
Yeah.
So it's a mess. So it's mess.
I'd say that, what I can tell you about it 100% is that the thing happened, and I don't think anybody was expecting anybody to know today that it happened.
Boy.
And I thought I was trying to be a good NWA soldier, and I had actually. One of the cool parts about this is you build friendships, you build relationships, you meet new people, you talk to people, DM you stuff all the time just for the hell of it. And when all this stuff's going on in the wrestling world this past few weeks, people ask me what I know, and I'm some kind of insider, and I'm really not, but or I guess you technically are. I don't know.
Well, that's the
problem. I'm not looking at it that way.
You become literally friends with these people, but then community members, and I've been in the same situation. Maybe not to your extent, but I've been there. You become friends with certain people, and then you get community members that reach out to you. What do you know? Can you tell me? And it's like they're stretching you thin.
Yeah, and the trouble is with the NWA is I love the NWA, and I love the people that are in the NWA. I'm legitimately still just a really big fan of it, and the show was built to just be, being fans marking out to what's going on in the NWA. Let's talk about the storylines. Let's talk about this. It's never been like dirt sheet kind of stuff. It's never been, we want the scoops. And I mean, I don't know if that's a good or a bad call, but it's just never been that way. And I think people expect that out of me, that are in and around the business. They know that I'm not like just trying to dig up dirt and trying to start some crap. I mean, when all this other stuff was going on, I laid out, man.
Yeah, me too.
I did not
I don't
want
hear any of that crap.
Yeah, I didn't want any part of that. And I didn't want to be like in the business of speculating on what's true and what's not and listing names and all of that stuff. Like I was just kind of like, you know what, that's not me. Like I want to focus on the positives. Same time, I understand it needs to happen. So I'm going to let it happen and just try not to shoot myself in the foot at any point with anything I say or do. And
I'm there, man.
Yeah. And so I was, I was just kind of laying out on that, but I will say that I stumbled into some information about everything that went down today. And again, being a good dude, and I probably wouldn't tell this, but I got a glass of wine here in front of me. So
yeah, well, hey,
thinking about it.
We're at a bar. We're at a bar, Gary. We're at a bar. Gotta drink up.
Exactly. On the internet. No, I was I was stressing out over it today, just because what happened was, like I knew, but I loved the NWA, and I wasn't gonna be the guy to say some stuff they didn't want anybody to know. And then Fightful.com broke the news that Zicky Dice had been released from the NWA. And it was a situation of, so again, everything I'm going to say here is what Fightful.com has reported, which was that that Zicky asked for his release and he was granted his release. And so I think they even asked Zicky for comment, and he just gave them outlandish. I think that's like that's the only comment he gave them. Yeah, exactly. But so then that comes out, and they put it behind their paywall. They put it on their Patreon thing, but I know what it is. Like they're just like teasing it at first about NWA Superstar released or something. They won't tell you who. You got to pay your $5 and get in, and then you can find out. But I let that stay out for a little while. So that had come out. Then I was like, all right, let's give it a little more time. And then I go in, and then I like retweet the Fightful article and say, like, per Fightful.com, Zicky Dice has been granted his release from the National Wrestling Alliance and blah, blah, blah. And I put that out there, and it is not like 5 minutes. And I am like, boom, how do you know this? Boom, where did that come from? Who told you that? What? I was like, whoa, what just happened? And then, I was like tagging people and like retweeting it and stuff, and people are like, why am I in this thread? Why I don't know anything about this. Why are you putting me in it? Like, it's like all this stuff. And I'm like, holy shit, dude. Like, let me get out of this. Like, I don't know. I didn't even say it. Fightful said it. And then, so I ended up deleting the tweet just because I was like, I'm not trying to, I deleted it because I was like, I'm not trying to cause drama here. And, but for like a hot minute, I was in the middle of some discussion with some investigation into how I know what I know, and like, why am I publishing that, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, I'm not the one who published it. Like, I didn't see anything wrong with it. Yeah. And I got accused of clickbait and all this stuff. I'm like, I'm not even trying to clickbait. Like, I mean, obviously we want people to click on stuff, right. But I mean, it's like, but that's not my article. I retweeted the article that says it.
You're just getting the news out there because you're the NWA Pod. But it's
that's what I kept saying. I was like, it would be so stupid for me to ignore this. Like, this is what we do. This is the company that we talk about. Why would we not say this? And but needless to say, we have not said anything about it. Technically, since I deleted that tweet, nobody just said it out today.
Retweets don't count. But because I was shocked because I've had Zicky on this show before and it was a great time. I mean, you've interviewed him. Zicky's a great guy. He's a great person. And I've been DMing him ever since then for a multitude of things. I knew he was going to do the Twitch thing, and I've been on Twitch for a long time, so we've been talking about that and all sorts of things. And so I find out, and I'm like, I literally find out live here earlier before you get on, and I'm shocked because I was just talking to him yesterday. But that makes sense. He's not going to tell you. But it's right. Just so I'm like, oh, what's going on? Give me a link. I need a link. If you're going to say that information, I need a link. I get the link. You know, I see it and whatnot. But the person tells me that Zicky gets to keep the TV championship. The NWA TV championship. That's what I was told. Now, I don't know if that's true.
I can tell you I 100% don't know anything for sure about that, but I would highly doubt that's the case.
That's I found it odd when I was told that, and it was presented to me.
Oh, that's an NWA belt.
Yeah. So, you know, it was presented to me like, oh,
I mean,
he keeps it. It's like a release, but it's really a release to just allow you to compete other places until the NWA gets back type of thing. I don't know. I don't know where this is going, but
I've seen that same speculation too, man. And I'll tell you what, like, and we have a Discord and somebody brought something similar to that up. I asked around about that. An article came out like a couple of weeks ago that was talking about the NWA was starting to allow people to compete elsewhere, and that was going to be a thing they were doing. I think this Zicky Dice thing is completely unrelated to that article. Yeah. I think this is a whole other thing. And now again, I can only go off speculation, so I can't tell you anything in fact. But just that when I asked around about that other article that had come out, I was kind of given information that the way the NWA was structured was that a lot of people considered that a non-story. They were like, everybody's got permission to wrestle elsewhere. They just can't be on television.
Yeah.
And it was just like Nick Aldis was the only one that is solely booked through the NWA. You can't have the NWA champion on your show without going through the NWA. Yeah. But everybody else is like free to work other promotions and other shows. They just can't be on their television show, basically. You know, well, the ones that they have under contracts. So that was it. So it was like a Zicky and a Thunder Rosa and a Eli and Aaron Stevens or whoever else. Like now again, this is just going off what I heard, but that it was like those guys could, if they wanted to, go wrestle elsewhere. And I think even Thunder Rosa's been to Japan and been wrestling over there, or had been, and is there like Princess Champion, like Joshi Princess Champion or something.
Yep.
And so she's got her own thing going on besides just the NWA. But it was just like here in the States, she couldn't like show up on AEW TV or something. So that was like the deal. But anyway, the Zicky Dice thing, I am under the impression from everything I'm getting, this is like a cold, hard, like
you're out of here.
We're done.
Wow.
Yeah, we're done here. And so that I would have to imagine that means he can't keep the television title.
Oh man, I tell you, there's two TV champions. He might as well just go and challenge Cody Rhodes right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he can show up there.
Speaking of former TV champions, Ricky Starks, were you surprised to see him show up in AEW? Because I wasn't.
No. I if you go back and look at
you had Ricky him twice. Now you interviewed him twice. So
right. I interviewed him. He was one of my first.
Yes.
Like right after Nick. He was kind enough to set up me and Ricky talking to each other. So that kind of led to him, I think, next or close thereafter. And which was awesome. Like he did it completely under Nick Aldis's recommendation, and Ricky, is, at least, especially at the time, was not doing podcasts or anything like that. He didn't like doing podcasts. He didn't want to do podcasts. If you look at our YouTube channel, I hadn't had the video up in a while, so I just re-released that interview and put on there, Ricky Starks doesn't want to do your podcast. Like I think I titled that the video. So maybe I am clickbaity. But that's it. Anywhere you look about YouTubing, that's like the number one thing they start off with. Make it captivating. Make it compelling.
You want people to click. You're not lying.
Right, exactly.
You're
so it is clickbait in that way. That's the goal.
He didn't want to do a podcast. You didn't lie.
We have a whole conversation in the episode about why he doesn't like doing podcasts. So I was like, this is all accurate. And it's just like, maybe that's the draw in, you know, but anyway, when he left the NWA, man, he was really cool. Like I was sad to see him go, and that one caught me off guard. And I hit him up just to be like, hey brother, you know, like, it really sucks to see you leave, but we appreciate you. And we've got that community feel I was talking about. Hashtag NWA fam. I'm like, as far as I'm concerned, once you're NWA fam, you're for life. And so I was like, so wherever you go, man, we're always going to be appreciative of you and think highly of you. And I was like, and if you ever want to address the NWA fans or anything like that, you know, we'd be happy to have you back on sometime. And he was just like, I got time today. Let's do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I took a lunch break from work and sat down and talked to Ricky Starks again. And he talked to me all about his stuff. But
I think
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It touches on a point, things I've been thinking about for my show. Like when I try to go out and get guests, I'm like, here's when I do my show. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday from 9 p to 11 p. Pick one of those hour slots you can be on. And I think I'm limiting myself but I like to do it live, and it's hard sometimes for me to just be like, oh, let's do the interview now and like record it. Like I love things live, and I feel like it's tough.
It's stressful.
It is. I feel like maybe I could get,
especially when you want to get like, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think maybe I could get more interviews or different people if I just said, hey, when do you want to record a spot? And
yeah,
I don't do that, but.
Well, to be honest with you, man, I've always, like, with the interviews and stuff like that, I try to approach it very humbly and be like, you're doing me a favor. Yep. When are you available? I'll make myself work around your schedule. So that's what I would try to do. But it's different from you because you're doing a lot of live and you're streaming live and up until recently, we weren't trying to get people on for the live shows. Yeah. We were just hanging out, and it was going to be us just shooting the shit, and it's nothing else. Yeah. You know, it's just like interacting with the chat and that sort of thing. We weren't planning for guests. Now, I will say that we, you know, once we got going again recently, especially with Carneyland and all of that stuff, and started talking about it, we had these moments of, like, I'd happen to be communicating back and forth with David Lagana that first week of Carneyland, and I was just like, if you want to jump on, you know, here's the Zoom link, just offered it out, and he did, and then that led to, like, I think the next week Nick Aldis jumped on, and then the next week, like, Thunder Rosa jumped on, and then it was like, oh, now we got ourselves into something, because now I feel like it's going to be expected that you're going to be watching live and somebody's going to show up.
It's a silver lining of COVID. Everybody knows Zoom now. All you got to do is give them the ID and the password, and they'll be there. It's the silver lining. That's the blessing, right? Because this is not a normal circumstance. No, it's not.
But typically that wasn't my thing. But yeah, it's been happening lately. We've been lucky. Like, Thunder Rosa's been on the live show twice now. Like, we were doing a live show the other night, and her husband was in the chat and said, "Send her the link. Like, you got to send her the link. She needs to address you guys about some stuff you're saying."
Yeah, that's
so awesome. I'm like, oh crap, okay.
I think I might have been there before,
Yeah, you might have been. And anyway, so it is different from what you're saying. Like with that Ricky thing, that was not a live interview. It was Ricky's got time right now. I'm going to sit down and have the conversation and record it, and we'll put it up later. And that's what we did. Going back to what you said, like, I mean, he was really open during that time. And, we obviously said a couple of things we couldn't like put on air about what was going on, but he was pretty much saying everything he wanted to say, like right there on the interview. And I was trying, man, because Double or Nothing was coming up.
And
I was wondering if he was going to show up somewhere.
Yeah, I thought he'd be at Double.
And he gave me a little tease, like he might, because he said something like, "Well, you never know where I'll show up because I'm just all in, and I'll just throw my cards in, and we'll call it right there or something."
I want to.
So he's giving you like all these gambling references.
To success is what he said.
Right.
Yeah, a little jerk.
Yeah, there you go. And I was like, okay.
Let's click talk.
So I was all excited. I literally, dude, I bought Double or Nothing just because I wanted to see it. I don't even think I was gonna, I was just gonna catch Double or Nothing later on down the road. Like I wasn't even worried about it. Then I was like, well, now I feel obligated so I can get the crack at the Ricky Starks dudes when he shows up there. And then the SOB didn't show up there. But he did later, and like you were saying, no, it wasn't a surprise. I expected he was going there at some point. I felt like it had to happen. He was good buddies with Sammy Guevara and some other people over there, and it just seemed like a place that would. And Ricky's good, man. Yeah. Ricky's really good, so it felt like somebody like that would want to give him a shot. And it was cool to see the story that it was not a planned thing more than one match. It was just like once they got halfway through the match, Tony Khan was just like, I've heard that was legit in several different places, that Tony Khan was just like, no, this guy's good. I want him. I've already got ideas for him. I know where we're going story wise. He's signed. As soon as he walks back here, let's get him. Yeah. And good for him. Good for that guy. I don't know if any of that relates to folks like a Zicky Dice. Maybe they're seeing opportunity because the NWA is not competing right now. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's, I got the impression from talking to Ricky, he wanted to wrestle, and he was,
I get that feel too.
Tired of sitting on his ass. So
let's, will the NWA survive this? Not only the COVID, but the other stuff that's gone down in the past couple weeks. Are we going to see it back?
Man, I hope so. I'm keeping the faith that they are coming back. I mean, the NWA's been through some stuff, man. They've been around for over 70 years, and they've seen some major peaks and major valleys, and this is just another setback for them. It sucks. Sucks it happened in the middle of all this, but
it really sucks.
I also feel like it's in the middle of all this. Nothing was going on anyway, so it's not like you're interrupting the main wrestling show. I mean, it kind of blows for Carneyland stuff, but
the recent stuff,
maybe this gives them a chance to reevaluate. Yeah. So like maybe this gives them a chance to reset and recalibrate, figure something else out, how they want to proceed, and move on. Who they lost was a major asset for the company. There's no doubt about that. Like, I mean, David Logano did a lot of stuff. And maybe this is a testament for why people need to learn to delegate. I don't know. Like, I can't speak to everything, but, David Logano handled a lot of crap in the NWA. But he was not the only person in the NWA. And he's not, like that company's, the people that are in that company are very talented, and people like Aldis and Josephus and those kind of guys have like major talents in other fields besides just wrestling. And so, Josephus during the Carneyland stuff was doing a lot of the editing and producing of those videos and stuff.
Great.
So
I think great. Josephus,
I think they're still, Oh, I love that guy. Yeah. I think So I think it's there. I think they can do it. They've just got to reorganize and figure out what's next. I'm sure that right now they are not in the best spot, probably the worst spot they've been in since Corgan took over. I imagine this is it, because how could you plan for all of this BS? It's here we are.
Let's get to some lighter stuff. I just had to ask. I had to ask that question. Some lighter stuff. Who are you voting for? For what is it? President of Carneyland? Mayor of Carneyland.
Oh, the mayor of Carneyland.
Mayor. Who are you endorsing, Mr. Gary Horne?
Man, I just got my town council certificate today in the mail, and now I don't even know if there is a town anymore. But I'd have to say
it's a hot commodity.
Yeah, right. That's a collector's item. I don't know how you'd vote for anybody but Tim Storm. Tim Storm seems like the most decent human individual, like human ever. Like, is there any bigger baby face than Tim Storm?
No.
I saw as soon as he was announced, for whatever reason, Strictly Business was endorsing him, so that's fishy. But as soon as Tim Storm was announced, I'm like, oh well, that's who will win. Like, there's no way. Who's going to go against Tim Storm? People love that guy.
I totally agree. Tim Storm, huge face. If you're gonna give somebody a title of mayor, Tim Storm is a mayor guy. Just look at him. I do like Eli Drake. He's got the voice and could run things, but I think Tim Storm is the best pick out of that. Although I'm not a councilman.
Stinson, Doc Stinson,
the third. Dr. Robert Stinson the third.
Right. If you listen to some of the shows, like he gets hot about Eli Drake sometimes. Like he like Eli Drake rubs him the wrong way for some reason. Like sometimes he's like all for him, and then other times he's just like
too boisterous
ranting about the Eli Drake show.
Too boisterous.
I was kind of pushing for Esther Addington myself. Like I was kind of like,
yeah,
just a hot cougar.
Yeah, exactly. Don't tell my way. But I really want Josephus. I think Josephus should run everything. It should be the church of Josephus. Everything he does, in my book, is solid gold. But that's just me.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think Stinson would have your back on that. And listen, I love Josephus, and he's a brilliant man. But I have a hard time believing that a lot of other people in that company would stand behind just Josephus taking over and making the thing in his own image. I can't see an Eli Drake being cool with the Church of Josephus being the setting for the show, and much less than Nick Aldis. Like, I can't picture that Nick Aldis is like wanting to go to Josephus Church every week on NWA Power. So I don't know.
It would be fun to see Tim Storm win and become mayor, and then him and Josephus have a match for the mayoral mayoral title.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyways, Gary, I never want to go over 11 o'clock. One of the things I pitch to my wife all the time is I'll never go over 11 o'clock. I'll always go from 9 to 11. I feel we could talk about wrestling all night. We haven't even touched on. We've only touched on NWA, how you got into podcasting, and how you hooked up with all your people. I mean, we didn't even talk about the news tonight. Tessa Blanchard got stripped of her title from Impact and caught tonight while we were talking. So
and what else?
She got released.
I didn't know this. I don't.
Yeah. So Tessa Blanchard,
what?
Impact Championship Wrestling. Let me make sure released. Yes. Impact Championship Wrestling. So a female was the heavyweight champion, the first one at Impact Wrestling. Great. Tessa Blanchard was stripped of her title, which is okay because, you can't compete. You want to do a 30-day compete clause, fine. But she was stripped of her title and released from Impact tonight. And that broke while we were talking. So, I mean, that's That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. It's right there. I'm just like, I'm pulling it up myself. Yep. No, you just broke the news to me, man. Yeah. I had no idea. That is
Vanessa,
crazy. Terminated its relationship with Tessa.
In my ear, hold on, let me put my hand up. My producer in my ear is telling me she did not fulfill her contract obligations. All right.
Oh. Okay. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Gotta love Vanessa. I gotta get one of those. Vanessa,
right? Everybody needs a Vanessa.
She's great. She's in our Discord. She's
she
awesome.
Great. She's totally
I enjoyed her. I was on the Nation show once, and that's where I first talked to her. But she's cool. You got good stuff going there if you've got Vanessa backing you up.
Yeah, I do. I've known Vanessa for a long time, and in the Nation show, you were on that. That was great. That was a great time on there. So. But anyways, Gary, I mean, I feel like, and I said this before you got on, you always have an open invitation. Don't worry, I'll harass you. I'll pull you on when I don't have a guest and need someone to talk to.
Well, like I said, sometimes that's what it takes with me. So you just gotta let me know when's good, and I'm happy to do it. This is fun, man. Like you said, I feel like we could talk all night, but also my wife will kill me.
I have 13 messages on my iWatch right now. 13. And listen to this, Gary. One of them is a group text with everybody that we're supposed to be going on vacation with. That's been a huge drama because of COVID and the whole other, like, my parents are elderly and have underlying conditions, and it's just it's really bad. And then the other one is my wife, and then my middle child who says, "It's me, Luca. Are you done yet? I miss you." And then it says. And then yeah, exactly. So my wife says, "Whenever you're done, I'm failing." Laugh out loud. So I've already gone over my limit, but I won't leave you empty-handed because what I do at the end of every show, no matter who's on, I give the mic to them. The floor is yours. You can put over whatever you want. You can bury whatever you want. I will not cut you off, I don't think, but I won't cut you off. And the floor is yours, Gary, so go ahead.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And no, I would just direct people to if you want to follow me or get any of my stuff, dumb memes, whatever. I'm at This Is Gary Horne on all of the social media stuff. The shows I mentioned, Psychotronic Film Society. That's at Psychotronic Pod. I know it's a long word, but you follow me, you'll find it. And the wrestling podcast that we focused on mainly, which is one of my favorite things to do right now, is at the NWA Pod. Easy enough. Everywhere you want to find it, even youtube.com/the NWA Pod, all that stuff. And we literally today just launched the NWApod.com. Yeah, and it has a shop with merch. And right now what we're doing is, because of everything that's going on with the stuff with NWA, we're putting our money where our mouth is. We started this whole shop, and we created a line of #NWA fam merch. It's just for the community, and we are not making anything off of this stuff. Like, I'm lying. I don't want to lie to you. We're making like $1 or $2 off of everything that gets sold. And it's just because to start the whole site, it was like $160 or something to get everything rolling. So we had to recoup a little of that. So, but we're not trying to make like a haul off of this thing. We just want people to be able to afford it. So that merch is super cheap. So if you like the NWA and you want to support them and you're with us, that keeping the flame alive to bring the NWA back is just a way we're trying to build the community that everybody can have like this #NWA fam merchandise. And so that's what we're doing. And like I said, it's super cheap. I think shipping's like a flat $5 or something like that.
That's the way to do it.
Can't do a better deal than what's on there right now.
Vanessa in the chat just said she's getting a tank top, which is a razorback. Yeah, Razorback. That's how you say it. A Razorback tank, which my wife was very excited about. She's getting a Razorback tank in a mug next week. So, sweet.
Nice. Thanks, Vanessa.
Yeah.
That is cool. I literally ordered everything in the shop today for myself.
So I want to see you in that Razorback next time we have you.
Yeah, well, okay. Not everything in the shop, but nobody wants to see that.
All right, Gary, I'm going to let you go. Otherwise, I think we might just screw over both our wives and be down here all night talking. Tell your wife I said thank you for allowing me to talk to you tonight. And we'll be in touch, man. I'll definitely have you on again. We can talk a lot of stuff. So thanks for coming by tonight, and have yourself a wonderful night, wonderful weekend, and a wonderful 4th of July.
You too, buddy. Thank you so much. This was a blast. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime, man. I'll see you around.
All right.
Excellent. And see, Gary's a pro. Gary's a pro because he jumped right out of the Zoom, and I got nothing more to give you. So I don't know how well people might have. I don't know what you guys thought of that interview, because it wasn't like a wrestler. You weren't really learning anything about a wrestler, which we do sometimes on here. But man, did I have a lot of fun. I learned a lot about Gary. I learned about the NWA Pod, what Gary's up to, how he got into it, how he hooked up with Adam, how he didn't, how him and Adam grew apart, and now he's with Gary or Dr. Robert Stinson III and Will. And it was great, man. I thought it was a lot of fun. He was cool. Yeah, it was a great time all around. I had a blast. So much love to Gary Horne and the NWA Pod, and Will and Robert Stinson III. We should have both those guys on. So something I'm going to do for break is I'm going to work actually on graphics. So when we stumble upon a situation like this where we're having a brand, let's say we want to have Gary, Will, and Robert on, we can do that and just make it look a little different and a little better. So Gary is the man. He is. I had a lot of fun. So, but as I said, I've been down here way too long tonight. We've gone way overboard, but it's okay. It is our final show. If I do go on a vacation, whether it's with my family, my extended family, or with my immediate family, I guess that's what you call, I will putting you over. The live aspect of putting you over will be on hiatus until after July 4th. After July 4th, we're coming back with Logan Creed from MLW and maybe JD Drake from the Garden State Invitational. He literally just DM'd me and said next Tuesday is perfect. If I can get him a time slot that works well with Logan Creed, it'd be great. But with that being said, everybody, thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you for the Blowout Man, Vanessa, for being in my ear. You got some great love tonight. So much love to the Blowout Man, Vanessa. The great Doc Brown, longtime friend, the raid that we got. We got some bits from Spuddy Canada, who wanted me to read what the message he wrote with the bits, but I can't with the bot I'm using. Just the blind umpire. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. I greatly appreciate it. Guys, have yourself a wonderful night. Have yourself a great weekend. Have yourself a great 4th of July. And I'll see you next time I click that live button. Thank you. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay sane. Thank you.